Welcome back, dear friends, to the Crimson Academy course on the Kitab-i-Iqan. In this section, we're covering paragraphs 113 through 114 of the Kitab-i-Iqan. According to Shia Islamic traditions, the promised Qa'im was expected to manifest sovereignty over all in the heavens and all on the earth. In these paragraphs, His Holiness Baha'u'llah explains that the sovereignty of the manifestations of God is the power that they inherently exercise, whether or not it is outwardly revealed. We share with you some following key points. The sovereignty of the promised Qa'im is a reality that no one can doubt. The nature of this sovereignty is different from what people imagine. According to the Holy Scriptures, this sovereignty had not been prophesied exclusively for the Qa'im, but has been vouchsafed for all the manifestations of God. By sovereignty is meant the power that manifestations of God inherently exercise, whether or not it is outwardly revealed. The sovereignty of Muhammad cannot be denied despite the severe persecution he suffered when he declared his mission. There are prophecies regarding the advent of two great manifestations of God in all the holy books. In Islam, the majority of the followers believe that the two expected manifestations are the Imam Mahdi and the Messiah. In the Quran, the advent of the promised ones is referred to as the Great Announcement. This is a recurring theme in the Quran, with about 5,000 of the 6,200 verses of the Quran revolving around this issue. And this is from M. Mustafa's Baha'u'llah, The Great Announcement of the Quran, page 6. In the Shia branch of Islam, due to a series of historical events, after the death of Hassan al-Askari, the 11th Imam, they came to believe that the promised Imam Mahdi was the return of the son of Hassan al-Askari. He is known as the 12th Imam and is supposed to have gone into occultation in childhood. According to Shia Muslims, the Imams are the hereditary successors of Muhammad. There were 12 Imams after the passing of Muhammad. There are different accounts regarding the story of the 12th Imam. According to the most popular version, and this is from Mojan Momen's An Introduction to Shia Islam, page 161, the mother of the 12th Imam was a Byzantine slave girl named Narjes Khatun. The 12th Imam was born in AD 868 and was named Abul Qasim Muhammad. Apparently, none of the Shia notables were aware that this Muhammad had been born. In AD 874, when the 11th Imam died, his brother Ja'far was assumed to be the 12th Imam. When he entered the house of his brother as the new Imam to lead the prayer for the dead, a young boy came forward and said, "Uncle, stand back, for it is more fitting for me to lead the prayers for my father than for you." According to Shia Muslim traditions, the boy was not seen after that incident and was said to have gone into occultation in a well. The well is located in a cave under the mosque next to the gold dome shrine of the Imam Ali al-Hadi and Hassan al-Askari at Samarra. After the death of the 11th Imam, Shia Islam fragmented into a few groups. One group believed that Ja'far was the true successor of his brother. Another group asserted that it was the 11th Imam who had gone into occultation. Others believed that the 12th Imam was not born yet and would be born on the Day of Judgment. One individual, Osman al-Amri, claimed that Muhammad, the son of the 11th Imam, did exist, but he was in occultation. Osman also claimed that he was the intermediary between the hidden Imam and Shia Islam. This became the belief of the orthodox Twelver Shia Muslims. Initially, the claim of the Osman was acceptable to people, as it was common at that time that imams would go into hiding to protect themselves from their enemies. There were agents who would communicate between the imam and the people, and they would collect money for the imam. However, after 70 years, the situation had changed, and thereafter the concept of occultation became a Shia Muslim doctrine. Osman nominated Abu Ja'far, his son, as his successor to be the agent of the hidden Imam. The third person nominated as agent was Abu Qasim Hussein ibn Ru an Nawabakhti. The fourth and last agent was Abu Hussein Ali ibn Muhammad as-Samari. He was only in this position for 3 years before 941. Each of these 4 agents was called the Bab, gate, the Safar, ambassador, or Naib, deputy by Shia Muslims. The last agent, as-Samari, brought the following message to the people prior to the time of his death. In the name of God, the Merciful, the Compassionate. O Ali ibn Muhammad as-Samari, may God magnify the reward of your brethren upon you. There are but 6 days separating you from death, so therefore arrange your affairs, but do not appoint anyone to your position after you. For the second occultation has come, and there will not now be a manifestation except by the permission of God, and that after a long time has passed, and hearts have hardened, and the earth become filled with tyranny. And there will come to my Shia believers those who claim to have seen me, but he who claims to have seen me before the emergence of the Sufyani and the cry from the heavens is assuredly a lying impostor. And there is no power nor strength save in God, the Almighty, the All-High. And friends, that was from Mojan Momin's book, An Introduction to Shia Islam, page 163. Hence, the hidden Imam went from the lesser occultation into the greater occultation in 941. Momin suggests that it was probably around the end of the lesser occultation that the hidden Imam came to be identified with the figure of the Mahdi, or the Promised One. The hidden Imam has been given many different titles, including Sahub al-Zaman, the Lord of the Age; Sahab al-Amra, the Lord of Command; Al-Mahdi, the rightly guided one; Al-Qa'im, he who will arise; and Al-Imam al-Muntazar, the awaited Imam; and the Baqiyatullah, the remnant of God. Due to the complex historical background mentioned above, the station of the Bab was misunderstood right from the time of his declaration. In 1844, when the Bab declared that he was the gate to one who would come after him, people initially thought that he was another agent or gate to the promised Qa'im. Apparently, the Bab did not make an attempt at that stage to clarify his station as a token of his mercy towards the people. However, the beloved guardian Shoaib Effendi mentions in one of his letters that the Bab himself never meant to be such a person. He claimed that he was the Qa'im himself, and in addition to this station, that of the Bab, namely the gate or forerunner of him whom God will make manifest. In the Dalal al-Sabah, the 7 proofs, the Bab explains the nature of that misunderstanding and the wisdom of not correcting it. He asked the followers of Islam to consider the manifold favors vouchsafed by the Promised One, and the effusions of his bounty which have pervaded the concourse of the followers of Islam, to enable them to attain unto salvation. While highlighting his high station, he states, "Indeed, observe how he who representeth the origin of creation, he who is the exponent of the verse, 'I, in very truth, am God,' identified himself as the gate for the advent of the promised Qa'im, a descendant of Muhammad, and in his first book enjoined the observance of the laws of the Quran so that the people might not be seized with perturbation by reason of a new book and a new revelation, and might regard his faith as similar to their own. Perchance they would not turn away from the truth and ignore the thing for which they had been called into being." And this, friends, was from selections from the writings of the Bab, page 119. In God Passes By, the beloved guardian Shoghi Effendi indicates that during the captivity of the Bab in Azerbaijan, the full implications of the station of the Bab were disclosed to his disciples and formally announced by him in the capital of Azerbaijan in the presence of the heir to the throne. And this was in page 17 of God Passes By. The Bab was not only the promised one of Shia Islam, he at once fulfilled the promise of all ages and ushered in the consummation of all revelations. And this is also in God Passes By Shoghi Effendi, page 57. According to Shoghi Effendi, the Bab was the Mahdi, one who was guided, awaited by the Sunni Muslims, the return of John the Baptist, expected by the Christians, the Usha Dharma in the Zoroastrian scriptures, the return of Elijah, anticipated by the Jews, whose revelation was to show forth the signs and tokens of all the prophets, who was to manifest the perfection of Moses, the radiance of Jesus, and the patience of Job. And this is also in God Passes By, page 57. In paragraph 113, His Holiness Baha'u'llah resumes to address the question why the sovereignty of the Bab had not been made manifest. The sovereignty of the Qa'im had been prophesied in Islamic traditions. For example, in a hadith attribute to the Prophet Muhammad and quoted in the Al-Futuhat Al-Makkiyah of the renowned Sheikh Muhyiddin ibn al-Arabi, such sovereignty is clearly described. By God who sent me as a prophet, in truth, were it that only one day remained for the world, God would prolong that day until my son, the Mahdi, would have come forth, and the Spirit of God would have come down and performed prayers behind him. And his sovereignty would have enveloped the East and the West. And friends, this can be found in M. Mustafa's book, Baha'u'llah, The Great Announcement of the Quran, page 21. The Bab and his followers, on the contrary, were severely persecuted by their enemies. The Bab was even martyred at the hands of the Muslim clergy. Baha'u'llah then makes the following points to highlight the nature of such sovereignty. The sovereignty of the promised Qa'im is a reality that no one can doubt. The nature of this sovereignty is different from what people imagine. According to the Holy Scriptures, this sovereignty had not been prophesied exclusively for the Qa'im, but has been vouchsafed for all the manifestations of God. A good example is the power and sovereignty attested for the first coming of the Messiah. By sovereignty is meant the power that inherently resides in every manifestation of God, and is exercised by Him no matter whether that supremacy appears in the physical world or not. In the case of the Bab, he himself highlights the power invested in him. God hath made him manifest, he states, invested with the proof wherewith the apostle of God was invested, so that none of the believers in the Quran might entertain doubts about the validity of his cause, for it is set down in the Quran that none but God is capable of revealing verses. During the period of 1,270 years, no one among the followers of the Quran ever witnessed a person appearing with conclusive proofs. Now the ever-living Lord hath made manifest and invested with supreme testimony this long-awaited promised one, from a place no one could imagine, and from a person whose knowledge was deemed of no account. His age no more than 25 years, yet his glory is such as none of the learned among the people of Islam can rival, inasmuch as man's glory lieth in his knowledge. And this, friends, was from the selections from the writings of the Bab, page 118. Excuse me, dear friends. So great, he further on states, is the celestial might and power, which God hath revealed in him, that if it were his will, and no break should intervene, he could, within the space of 5 days and nights, reveal the equivalent of the Quran, which was sent down in 23 years. And that is from selections from the writings of the Bab, page 118. In paragraph 114, Baha'u'llah describes the sufferings inflicted on the Prophet Muhammad to illustrate the nature of the sovereignty associated with the manifestations of God. Although the sovereignty of Muhammad cannot be denied now, he became the target of severe persecution when he declared his mission. Baha'u'llah refers to 4 distinguished divines of that age who treated Muhammad as an impostor and inflicted significant sufferings on him. Abdullah Ubay, he was a firm enemy of Muhammad, although pretending on the surface to have accepted Islam. In reality, he provoked the Muslims to oppose Muhammad and caused corruption and conflict. Muhammad's followers, including the son of Abdullah Ubay, who had become a faithful follower of Muhammad, planned many times to kill Abdullah Ubay, but Muhammad prohibited them. Abdullah Ubay finally died in Medina, maintaining his utmost animosity and hostility towards Muhammad. Part of the Surah Al-Munafiqun, the hypocrites, reveals Abdullah Ubay's hostility. And friends, you can find that in Ishraq Khaveri's Kitáb-i-Iqán in Farsi, volume 2, pages 1004 through 1005. Abu Amir, the hermit. He was a Christian hermit who accepted Islam when Muhammad declared his mission, but later withdrew and became an enemy of Muhammad. He led a group of followers to break away from Muhammad and his faith. He built a mosque near Medina and invited people to worship in it. This is a reference to this mosque in the Quran in the following verses. There are some who have built a mosque for mischief and for infidelity, and to disunite the faithful, and in expectation of him who in time past warned against God and his apostle. They will surely swear our aim was only good, but God is witness that they are liars. Never set thou foot in it. There is a mosque founded from its first day in piety. More worthy is it that thou enter therein. Therein are men who aspire to purity, and God loveth the purified. Which of the two is best? He who hath founded his building on the fear of God and the desire to please him, or he who hath founded his building on the brink of an undermined bank washed away by torrents, so that it rusheth with him into the fire of hell? But God guided not the doers of wrong. Their building which they have built will not cease to cause uneasiness in their hearts, until their hearts are cut in pieces. God is knowing, wise. And this, friends, is in chapter 9 of the Quran, verses 108 through 111. In order to destroy Islam, Abu Amir went to Syria to assemble an army with the help of the Byzantine emperor. He did not succeed because the emperor ignored him. He died in Syria. Ka'b ibn Ashraf. He was one of the most persistent Jewish enemies of Muhammad from Medina, who caused a great deal of harm to the Prophet and the Muslims. And friends, this can be found in Ishraq Qawari's book, Kitáb-i-Iqán in Farsi, volume 3, pages 1298 to 1299. After the temporary defeat of Muhammad at Badr, he went to Mecca and formed an alliance with Muhammad's arch-enemy, Abu Sufyan, to kill Muhammad. On his return to Medina, some followers of Muhammad, who became aware of his journey to Mecca and of his opposition, killed him. Muhammad then ordered his followers, the Bani Nadir, to leave Medina, as reflected in the following verse from the Quran. And friends, this can be found in Hubert Dunbar's book, A Companion to the Study of the Kitab-i-Iqan, page 141. He is the one who evicted those who disbelieved among the people of the Scripture from their homes in a mass exodus. You never thought that they would leave, and they thought that their preparations would protect them from God. But then God came to them whence they never expected, and threw terror into their hearts. Thus they abandoned their homes on their own volition, in addition to pressure from the believers. You should learn from this, O you who possess vision. And this was from the Quran, chapter 59, verse 2. Nadra ibn Harith. He was another persistent enemy of Muhammad. According to Hubert Dunbar's book, and this, friends, is in Mr. Hubert Dunbar's book, A Companion to the Study of the Kitab-i-Iqan, page 141, he was one of the 9 people who were mentioned in the following verse of the Quran. And there were in the city 9 persons who committed excesses in the land and did not that which is right. And this is in the Quran, chapter 27, verses 49. The elders of the Quraysh tribe sent Nadra ibn Harith and others to learn difficult questions from Christians that could be used to challenge Muhammad's teachings. He also traveled to Iran for trade and learned the traditional Persian stories of Rustam and Isfandiar. On his return to Mecca, he used to sit in the Al-Haram mosque and narrate to Arabs the stories he had learnt, claiming that his stories were more interesting than those of Muhammad. He also used to encourage the shopkeepers not to buy from or sell to the Muslims and the Arabs, and not to mix with the Muslims. And friends, this was from Ishraq Qavari's book, Kitáb-i-Iqán in Farsi, Volume 4, pages 1590 to 1591. Thank you, dear friends.